So our first speaker this afternoon, evening, or probably morning, and wherever you are tuning in from, is Naomi Mossambili, and I know Naomi personally, and Naomi is very talented, and you should hear how much she's involved in. She's a psychologist by training and an award-winning social entrepreneur. She leads initiatives spanning health, mental health, entrepreneurship, technology, agriculture, and social innovation. She is the co-founder of Chenoa, an organization whose focus is on co-developing innovations, specifically in healthcare, mental health, and in education. At heart, Naomi is an agriculturalist and is passionate about organic and permaculture farming. She is from UK but recently relocated or located to Tanzania. Welcome, Naomi. The mic is yours for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, Grace. And it's such a pleasure to be here with everybody. My name is Naomi Mastambili. I'm currently in Tukuyu, which is in the southern highlands of Tanzania, and it's freezing, which is why I'm sat outside wearing a jumper because I'm in the mountains. But it's quite nice to be outside, and maybe later on I'll be able to just flip so you can see it's faded out at the moment. But it's really nice to be here and to talk about this topic around permaculture and organic farming, which that I've been taking since childhood, but definitely up the stakes over the past 2 years of being in Tanzania. So I just want to, I guess, introduce permaculture farming, organic farming, which I'm sure people know about, and then just give you the story really from Tanzania around how we've applied it, and also I guess why it's so important now in thinking about these farming techniques when a lot of farmers, smallholder farmers, are spending so much money on chemical pesticides and I've got a few slides. I'm going to share my screen. If anybody has any questions or needs me to slow down, please just let me know as well. Okay, so as Grace mentioned, I've grown up in the UK. I'm Tanzanian and I'm Jamaican by heritage. And actually, if I go back, cultivators and farmers are in both of my lines of heritage. And my mum's best friend had an allotment, and so I spent a lot of my childhood on an allotment growing up. And even as far as when I was living in London, I was always growing peppers, chilies, what you're growing, and I'd always be growing food. On my balcony and never used any chemicals, but I guess didn't explore the science around it, but never added anything to the things that I was growing. But in coming to Tanzania and being in Tanzania, one of the drivers and motivations personally I had was around how I could develop permaculture and organic farming systems in the places that we're working in. And so for many people, there's a lot of slight permaculture is permanent agriculture. So as opposed to traditional agriculture where you see lines and lines and lines of particular crop, it's how we create biodiverse ecosystems, integrating, trees, plants, perennials, annuals, but also, encouraging different wildlife and different bugs to come that can sort of like maintain a microsystem of what we're creating. So, all of the farms that we create are being working on our permaculture farms. And also, I guess we're not purely organic in relation to all the seeds. Organic farming principles in the sense that we take all the waste that comes and we recycle it and so we make our own fertilizers, we make our own pesticides. I'll talk a little bit about some of the makeup of those and the ingredients that we incorporate within those as well, but everything that we use to replenish the soil and to feed the plants is either from environmental or fruit, vegetable, or animal waste as well. And I guess you can really listen to the taste of the food, but also we've started to do some analysis around the nutritional benefits of the farming techniques. And it's moving away from this sort of like importing of seeds, importing of pesticides, and really thinking about how we localize, how we harvest the seeds that we're doing, how we develop and we create our own pesticides and fertilizers, and also more importantly, how we then add value to the products that we're creating, to be able to the background noise in the background here. Yeah. So, these are the two sort of pictures of agriculture and permaculture, and this is what we've been working on the right hand side. Rather than having the face masks and protecting yourself from the chemicals you're putting on the food that we're eating, and we're putting into our body, we should be able to integrate with our environment. We should be able to eat, but also the trees can provide us fuel, can provide us the ability to be able to build and sustainable building material as well. Our principles that we really work on is learning from nature, and I'm sure many people who are on the call today have spent some time to just sit and learn from nature. And I guess in relation to thinking about what plants go with each other, how we support, we can learn so much from animals, we can learn so much from water, we can learn so much from the environment that's built up. And for us specifically here in Tanzania, in the Southern Highlands and in Kikuyu region, actual permaculture principles were the historical way of culture that has slightly changed some of those things. But what I've spent a lot of time doing is sitting, looking at chickens, watching birds, and starting to learn a little bit more about how things and ecosystems work together. I will slow down. Sorry about that, Eugenie. I'll slow down as well. Okay. So, and I always say, and this is talking about obviously SDG zero hunger, but we've also got to talk about medicine as well and the health that comes from the plants, and plants, barks, roots, leaves, and the medicine that we can gain from those is knowledge that's really being lost, specifically generationally as well. And across sub-Saharan Africa, but across Tanzania, 80% of medicine that is used is traditional medicine and is medicine from the land. But many people are walking around plants, trees, herbs, and not really knowing the benefits of it as well. So one of the pieces of work we've been doing is around educating young people, and also planting those trees. And I'll talk a bit more on that as well. So I just want to take you to Tanzania, and take you to some of the projects that we work on. So the work I do within Tanzania is under Livy Africa. And Livy Africa is a research, manufacturing, social business, where we're working on value chains around agriculture, all the way from seed, all the way to products and added value as well, with a particular focus on cocoa. But we're also working across all the different value chains as well. And, the principle matriarchal right from the name. Livy is named after my two grandmothers, Lillian and Ivy, who both had very different experiences, but definitely the love of nature. And for us it's really important that it's not just about like the business model around attached to growing food, and actually my principle is feed yourself first, and I'll talk about how we fed ourselves first, but that deep respect that we have for the planet, for the way that we're cultivating the crops that we are, the food that we're doing, and and transparency that we try and work towards in everything, because the energy that you put into the food and into growing, I believe, also goes and seeps into your body as well. So we're very much driven by matriarchal and our grandmother's principles and the lessons and the knowledge that we've learned from them as well. And so the challenge, like in many different places as well, there's pervasive problems in Tanzania around youth unemployment. Agriculture is not really sexy. People are growing things but not necessarily thinking about how they can commercialize, but also for themselves. And so, you have to approach some of the challenges that in a sustainable and a systemic way as well. And you can see some of the pictures from on the right hand side of the work that we've done, and we've gone from, and that was one of our sites at the bottom there. You can see two of my cousins actually digging up the soil, gone from completely barren sites where the soil has been depleted, often from burning things or adding pesticides, to creating plants can flourish. So I'll talk you to three of our sites. We've got 3 farming sites here in Tanzania. The first one I'll talk you through is the first one we arrived at a year and a half ago, and you can see from the bottom picture, if you can see the grass that's overgrown, that's what the whole place looked like. It's just under an acre, and it's in Mbeya town. Now, there's a running source of water there, but there was no food grown. And so what we did straight away is we cleared the site and we stripped the site. And then I started going to the market and seeing the and started collecting banana skins actually from the market. Started collecting banana skins and started to make some simple banana fertilizer by adding water and a little bit of sugarcane, putting it in the water for about a month, and then adding it to the soil. Also adding rotting banana as well to a lot of the soil to start to feed the soil. Bananas got a lot of phosphorus and potassium in. So looking at the NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, we knew the soil was not very good. So we started making the banana fertilizers. Now, if anybody, the regions of Tanzania where they grow the most bananas. However, everybody called me mad for creating a fertilizer with bananas. But one of the things I kept saying to people was, you shouldn't have to pay for fertilizers. There's a lot of waste here that can actually be put back into the soil. So we started to replenish the soil with that. We also started to collect donkey poo, and started to collect cow poo from just the streets and some of the local farmers, and adding that to the soil as well. Sort of like separate box systems as well. There was no trees here, you can see. So we planted some trees. We planted some moringa trees, which are highly nutritional. We planted papaya trees. We planted avocado as well. So we started to create tree systems that could grow over the years alongside some of the annuals, and we separated the land into different sort of like chunks around where we could grow different foods in different ways. So we start varieties of fruit and vegetables that are grown there. We make all our own fertilizers. So now we make watermelon fertilizer, which is high in nitrogen, again adding water. We make pineapple fertilizer. We make pineapple fertilizers by adding pineapple skins to water. We also get what is the baobab, so buyu grows here in the baobab. We take the powder from a baobab and we add that to the soil as well. And some of the things that we do are slightly by mistake. So we threw it outside, and all of a sudden we had about 500 tomato seedlings that were growing. So we rapidly, what you can see at the bottom, and I'll share a video with you to watch another time, we built a greenhouse that cost approximately in pounds, about £50. We bought, local wood and plastic, and we created a simple assembled greenhouse, and we planted our tomatoes in there. Now everybody said, Naomi, if you're growing tomatoes, you need fertilizers, pesticides, and we said no, we're not going to eggshells to our soil, and we added rotting fish to the soil, and we had a couple of months later an abundance of different types of tomatoes that grew from there. We also co-planted with garlic as well, so we planted garlic cloves underneath the roots of our tomatoes, again to stop some of the bugs to come in, and that worked fantastically, as well as doing a spray which was a pesticide spray, which was baking powder, a little bit of sunflower oil, and sprayed that on the leaves as well. So we had to do a lot of things via trial and error, but we started to realize actually, you can grow, utilizing organic principles, but also permaculture is not a design that comes overnight. You have to invest in it over a period of time. And we know there's going to be food challenges in the next few years. And this is the right time now to start to plant those trees, to start to think about the practices and principles of farming that we are utilizing as well. And food that we're growing, we also have livestock, so you can see the chickens there that we have, and they also provide us with our fertilizers as well. So the chicken poo, we dry that out, we don't put it on straight away because it's very strong, so we dry it out and then we embed that and introduce that into our soil systems as well. So at our particular site now, we have a range of herbs, rosemary, thyme, sage, fennel, local herbs that are growing. We've got turmeric, we've got ginger, and we've got a lot of the food. We grow beans, we grow cabbages, we grow sweet potatoes, normal potatoes, and within a year we are able to sustain a lot of the food that we eat within the house from what we've grown there on the land as well. And so I always say in Tanzania, seeing is believing. So now we've been inviting a lot of the local farmers and smallholder farmers to see what could be done. They saw what it was like beforehand, and it's become a like training space as well, especially in relation to organic fertilizers. We also have a lot arrays. This is because not all areas are benefit from water. And water is going to be a big challenge in the years to come, specifically for growing. So we have a 25-acre site that's based in the sort of northern area of Mbeya, which is in the middle of the East Rift Valley. Now that site, 6 months of the year is arid and dry, has no water, and 6 months has water. And so what we're working on is water harvesting systems and water filtration systems by being able to do rainwater harvesting, but also we're undertaking a big agroforestry project where we're planting at least 5,000 new trees in the area to prevent water runoff. And so the rain, when it does fall in the rainy season, can be held within the mountains a little bit more. On this site, as you can see, we've been growing sunflowers, which is an interesting issue at the moment because there's a global shortage of sunflower oil because of the mass-produced oil from Ukraine and Russia. Whereas if you come to the Mbeya region, and so there's something that's really important around the fact that we really need to look specifically in sub-Saharan Africa at how we add value to the products that we're growing as well. And this is all organically grown sunflowers as well. Add value, and then we can integrate them within the supply chains. And so once we've fed ourselves first, we can then start to look at the surpluses of food and of products that can be processed and manufactured to be able to provide and start to feed the world as it is, because there is going to be a massive demand now for organic and a range of food produce, which Africa and sub-Saharan Africa can supply, and ensuring that they supply themselves with food can move forward to supply. And again, the fertilizers we use on our sunflowers is purely cow dung, cow manufacture. So yeah, we've also now integrated chia seeds growing there. We're growing castor for castor oil. And during the rainy season, we have and lastly, and I've got a couple of seconds left maybe, I just wanted to show you Mababo Kiela. This is a very different microclimate, and I'll finish now, Grace, where we're growing cocoa, but we also have palm trees. And this is a natural permaculture setup where we have the palm trees that are integrated with the cocoa trees, which are integrated within the banana trees, which also we're able to grow strawberries and a range of different fruit and veg as well. So I guess what we want to show is even within the space of a year, you can grow your own food. And one of the things that we really want to do is inspire younger people to be able to take the land that they've got, take ownership of that land, and start to grow their food in a healthy and organic way. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Naomi. That is such an interesting project. And what I like is how practical it is and how down to earth, and nothing that is too difficult to acquire. And I'm also very interested to know that you can grow bananas with cocoa and palms. I never really thought of it that way, and even strawberries. Beautiful sort of biosystem there. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know that there might be questions for you at the end. Thanks, Naomi. Our next panelist will be Dr. Frank Kwekucha Aka. Dr. Frank is a plant pathologist, a mycologist, and a lecturer in the Department of Crop Science at the University of Cape Coast, Ghana. He teaches both undergraduate and graduate courses in plant protection, including plant disease diagnosis, crop health management, integrated pest management, and also food microbiology. His research interest involves plant disease diagnosis, integrated pest management, crop improvement, fungal biodiversity, biology, conservation, systematics and application, and biocontrol. Dr. Frank, welcome, and you have the mic for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be part of this program. And then I want to also thank Sonny for reaching out to me. Actually, when she got in touch with me, I was surprised. So thank you very much to all. And then my topic, what I'm presenting on, is towards in Africa, the role of biopesticide. And then I think because of the time, I don't want to go, I don't want to talk much about crop production, but I want to let people know the importance of crop production in Africa. And then to the farmer, the crop production serves as a source of food and then fodder for the animals. And then also there's main source of livelihood. Though we have many farmers in all acreage, but crop production is a major in terms of their contribution to their livelihood. And then to the national level, it serves as raw materials for the industry. In Ghana, in last 4 years, the government introduced the one district, one factory policy. And then we realized that majority of the factories that were to be established, that are to be used in this industry are from the crop industry. So it plays a role in improving national GDP, and then also for foreign exchange. And then employment, majority of the local foods are into the crop production sector. Cocoa is the major export commodity of Ghana, and then especially the southern side of the country, you have a lot going to the cocoa sector. And so it employs majority of the people, and then not only in Ghana, in other African countries, crop production is the major, and then contribute to our achievement of food and nutritional security. So when they are producing, they sell the surplus, and so the country gets a lot of. Now that there is an issue with importation of other materials, food from most of the African countries are suffering because they are not getting a lot of food from other. But crop production has been able to help in a way. So in terms of international and then at the global level, Ghana has been importing a lot of tomatoes, onions, and then other crops from the neighboring countries, from Burkina Faso, Niger, and then we are also exporting some other grains and other crop products into other countries. So it is international trade as well. Now the major crops and the principal crops grown in Africa, we have cocoa, the oil palm, coconut, coffee. All these are the industrial crops, and then are grown in different parts of Africa. And as with the Sahara desert, we have the shea butter, and then the cashew, also the transitional zones, you have cashew, the starchy crops, you have plantain, also cereal crops, the legumes are there, the fruits, the vegetables are also some of the crops that you find people growing in Africa. But there are constraints to production. One major has to do with the biotic constraint that has to do with the pests and diseases. The abiotic constraints, we have the changes in what predicts the weather. Last year, many people thought it was going to rain much along the way, especially the early season, it didn't rain much. The minor season, where everybody knows it is a minor season, that is when it rained much in Ghana and then some other part of Africa. So climate change is playing a very significant role as to what can be produced at any point in time now. And then another issue has to do with I did a research on the impact of illegal mining on cocoa production. And then the result was that most of the farmers were giving out the land to the illegal miners themselves. So we realized that most people thought it was rather the illegal miners who were encroaching, but we realized that it was rather the farmers who were rather giving out the land because they needed money as well. So a lot of the farmlands are now being used for mining, which is we have the economic constraints as well, the inadequate capital, government policies not favoring agri, because at any point in time, a government will decide this is what we want to grow. So because there's fund, many farmers, you see many farmers moving towards growing that particular crop that the government would want them to grow, neglecting other most important crops. So some of these policies also affect crop production. And now, high cost of input, prices of goods are moving up every day. Now, fertilizer prices have more than doubled just within the first quarter of 2022. So it tells you that, and the most farm inputs are also now very expensive. So it is preventing people from those who even want to go into large production are now moving out because of the high cost of production, inadequate infrastructure, weak linkages between producers and buyers. But I would want to base my presentation on the biotic factors, the pests and the diseases. In Africa, we have pests and diseases causing major significant losses to crop production. Years back, there was this issue of the Cassava Mosaic viral disease, which is caused by which is a viral disease affecting most cassava production and then transmitted by mites. Now we have, which was a major challenge about 2 years ago in East Africa, and termites, mealybugs, whiteflies, and the fall armyworm now becoming a major in cereal crops production in Africa. Just recently, a farmer called me. I went to visit the farm because the mangoes were dropping. I went there and then I realized that the challenge was the fruit fly. Well, very large plantation, but the farmer, the needed returns. And these fruit flies are also attacking vegetables as well. Now, when you plant cucumber, you plant watermelon, you are likely to have challenges with the fruit fly. And so these are some of the major and the diseases, the anthracnose, the bacteria spot, black spot, now becoming a challenge in Africa on mango production. The bacteria of cocoa production, Phytophthora, caused by the Phytophthora megachaya, Phytophthora parmivora, becoming a major. And surprisingly, there's one species which is only limited to West Africa, that is the megachaya. And so most farmers growing cocoa are battling with it. And the government in these countries are spending so much on control of the black pod disease or of some of these pests and diseases. Methods that are applied are the cultural control method, mechanical control method, physical, biological, the host plant. Some of them are using resistant crops, but it turned out to be susceptible in the long run. And so this is a challenge. And because of our border are porous, though some level of regulations are being applied, but because the workers are not equipped with modern technologies, day in, day out, people are bringing in fresh produce that are infected or infested in a way. So that also becomes a challenge as long as management of pests and diseases are concerned in Africa. But one other that has been accepted by everyone, and because most farmers don't have the needed labor, and then also the years back, if you want, you can easily get high labor. The young guys are available to do it, but because of rural-urban migration, and then now another issue has to do with because of the illegal mining. Most of the young ones are now going to illegal mining, so you wouldn't get these people to come and weed your farm or come and then help you in your farm when the need arises. So most of the farmers are now resorting to the use of pesticide, the inorganic pesticide, which is becoming a major issue. And even a few acreages, instead of removing, they will prefer to spray. In home gardening now, people are now resorting to the use of these chemicals because they think it is an easy way. But it comes with challenges, a lot of health implications, and then also on the environment, pollution, and then and these residual effects like being on we the consumers. The other time I went to there was a project that we were undertaking of Ghana, and I saw one farmer bringing out produce to the market, and I could see residue because the kind of chemical the farmer sprayed was visible on it. I could see those chemicals all over the vegetable, but he didn't care. He just needed money, so he brought it to the market. And then we have people who are ready to buy because it was cheap. The effect is something that we cannot hold. Chemicals are toxic to non-target pests as well, and so it's a challenge. But when we talk about the biological control agent, we have non-toxic, which is non-toxic to humans and then animals, and do not pollute the environment. They are host specific because it targets the organism that you want to target. And so, well, the challenge that we have realized is that just few people know about naturally occurring organism or substance that control pests. Most people have been using them in their homes of late, and then traditionally old people used to use them, but we didn't know the sciences behind it. And so they include microbial, these are microorganisms such as bacteria, the fungi, viruses, and the biochemicals. We have the antibiotics, the semiochemicals, the pheromones, the biopesticides that we use in our pest control programs. So they are usually less toxic than the conventional pesticide, and they affect only non-target pests, unlike the conventional insect that attacks any organism that it comes in contact with. And one man sprayed a herbicide just last week. I visited around and I realized that all the snails around where the target was the weed, but here's the case, this herbicide has also killed the snails around. So it doesn't favor any organism that comes its way. So biopesticides are effective in very small quantities and then often decompose quickly, unlike the conventional pesticide. And it can be used as a component of IPM as well. In Africa, but even worldwide, it accounts for only 1% of the global pesticide market, just 1%. It tells you the level of acceptance of biopesticides. And it is limited in use in Africa. I was going through some of the approved chemicals in Africa, some of the African countries. And then I realized that all the approved, you wouldn't even have, you have less than 2% of the approved chemicals being biopesticide, of the approved pesticide as biopesticide, which is a challenge. And the common pesticide used, we have the BT-based insecticide. Almost all the biopesticide that you find on the market are either BT-based or we have emamectin, the benzoates. The botanicals, yes. In home gardening, what we always recommend is the use of the botanicals. The neem extract, mahogany, the papaya, we have the garlic, lantana camara, we have the lemongrass, all being botanicals that are being used in various places. But these ones, they cannot use it on commercial basis because of the quantity that you may need. That is why it is the use is limited to only small farms. And there was a time where papaya, the papaya production in Africa, and so government in other parts of Africa had to resort to a parasitoid, the Acidophagous papaya. It was released to destroy these mealybugs, and so these parasitoids are still in the system and being piloted in other African countries. And then again, when the cassava mosaic viral disease became a serious issue some time ago in Africa, there was a parasitoid that was. So these are some of the basic or the few accepted parasitoid that or biopesticides that are used in Africa. There are so many organisms that can be used in managing pathogens. Now, currently in Africa, one major challenge has to do with managing soil-borne pathogens. The Sclerotium ropsi, vegetable crop, and we have the Phytophthora, the cocoa, the organism that causes the black pod disease, Phytophthora. It's a soil-borne pathogen. Fusarium, which causes wilt disease in vegetable crops and some other crops, is a soil-borne pathogen. And then we have Rhizoctonia. Rhizoctonia is also becoming a challenge. It causes ball rot on cabbage. It's also some fungus that are effective against these soil-borne pathogens. And that is one thing that I've been working on for the past 3 years, trying to get an effective organism, an organism which is effective against soil-borne pathogens. And Trichoderma has been reported as one of these organisms. And so my interest was to get isolate from Ghana, which are effective against the soil-borne pathogens. So far, I have been able to isolate 15 Trichoderma organisms, and I have screened them against 3 major soil-borne pathogens, which is the Phytophthora, which is Sclerotium ropsi, and Rhizoctonia. And one thing that Trichoderma does is that it penetrates the pathogen mycelium and then destroy the cell wall, and can also secrete chemical to kill the target pest or space. Sometimes it colonizes the root zone of the plant and then prevents any organism attacking the plant. Sometimes also helps in the absorption of nutrient for the plant. So if the soil nutrient even moves beyond the root zone, Trichoderma can help in absorbing these pests, these chemicals for the root. And it can be found everywhere in the soil, and even when you have decomposed the Trichoderma growing, this is a soil, and you can see Trichoderma growing on it. This is decomposed a log, and the green growth, the powdery substance you find, that is Trichoderma. So there are so many places that you can get Trichoderma, and what we did was to screen them against this is Sclerotium ropsi. This is Sclerotium ropsi. This is the Trichoderma, and the growing around the Sclerotium ropsi. This is Phytophthora, the causative organism of the black pod disease, and then this is Trichoderma. So we did the dual culture techniques to see the effect, and then within 3 days, the Trichoderma just took over completely and then restricted the growth of the organism. We have done the field trials. We have gotten 3 of them are highly effective against these soil-borne pathogens, and so we are just going around doing the other step of the experiment and then come out with the product. And among the biopesticides on the market in the European country and then Asia, Trichoderma constitute about 60% of them. And so getting an effective Trichoderma in Africa and the regions is a step in the right direction. Yes, there's a research institute in Kenya, the ICIPE, has been doing research on this. They introduced Trichoderma into the market some time ago, but it wasn't that effective because it is always advisable that you get a pathogen, an isolate from within the country that you want to use, because it is adapted to the environment. When you get that isolate and then you apply, you are able to manage them effectively. But when you bring that isolate, because it is not adapted to the environment, it may be difficult for it to be effective. That is one thing that has to do with these biocontrol organisms. So I will advise that we educate farmers on the use of biopesticides because of the effect of these inorganic pesticides. So there has to be more education on the use of biopesticides in Africa, and then let the farmers know the various types that they can also use. And because there's a market of these biopesticides as a result of the number of people who are now concerned about their health and who are now trying to go into the consumption of organic produce. These biopesticides are the only sure means of controlling these pests and diseases, because you can't grow a crop in Ghana, in Africa, without you having challenges with pests and diseases. And so you need a
Okay, thank you, Frank.
biopesticides.
Sorry, Frank, I have to stop you because you're actually 7 minutes over time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very interesting, though, and I really like that you've highlighted the key issues of what is the problem in terms of crop production in Africa, but it's probably around the world almost the same, but what can be done and the little that is being done for the most effective methods. So thank you very much for sharing, but now we have to move on to our next speaker. So our next speaker this afternoon is Anyata. Anyata is a research and development coordinator at India One Solar Thermal Power Plant. She's a keen promoter of natural yogic farming and was the focal point for the Brahma Kumaris delegation at the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, the 15th Conference of Parties in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. Anyata is also the director of the Brahma Kumaris in Poland. She has lived in Hong Kong, Japan, and China before residing in India for the past 10 years. So Anyata has done a lot of work on not organic farming, but on the solar energy. Welcome to you, Annetta, and the mic is yours for the next 15 minutes. Let's try and keep time, please. Thank you.
Welcome once again. Good afternoon and greetings of peace. I'm very happy to be here with you, and I'm connecting with all of you from Ghana, from Accra. For last 3 weeks, I really feel a lot of gratitude for people and for the land here. So I'm happy that I can contribute to sustainable life here, but also throughout the whole world, by sharing some of my understanding and my experience when we speak about food. And I would like to speak about healing food, about what kind of food it is, how to prepare this food, so it will be sustainable. So as Grace already mentioned before, we for last 2 weeks have been in Abidjan participating in the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, COP15. So there was a lot of information shared there, and I would like to present some of them, which I believe are the most valid and relevant for our discussion here. So land degradation, we speak about sustainable food production. So then we have to see what we have to change, what we have to correct. And land degradation coming from agriculture is one of the main issues which our world is facing today. One thing is that we, as the whole population, we are using resources of 1.7 planet Earth. It means there is no more land available really for us, is being degraded. Actually, 70% of available land has already been altered by human beings, and 25% of the land that is available for agriculture has already been fully, highly degraded by us, people who use it. There is a lot of problem with soil erosion. It is degrading at very fast speed. Deforestation is another huge problem caused by agriculture, system destructions, so many problems. So I was wondering from where all those problems come and what is the main root cause of that. And then I made a little bit, not a lot of research. It was enough to go deeper a little bit to see that there is one main, very big reason for all this unsustainable food production. And in one word, we can say that this is the livestock. Livestock is the of land resources. Basically, livestock is using almost 80% of all agricultural land available for us, which is 45% of the whole global surface available. And at the same time, meat and dairy provide just 18% of calories and 37% of protein. So as you can see on this graph, it is very clearly showing that meat, but also dairy, use 1,000 kilocalories of this specific food type. While when we look at plant-based products, they use much less land, producing the same amount of calories and even proteins. So when we look at the diet that is being used today in the whole world, actually the current diet requires more than 4.1 globe. And when we look at how this land is used, it is amazing because most of this land is used for pasture. It means for grazing the animals that later on people eat. And then the remaining part, big portion of that is used for cropland that will be for crops that is used to feed animals. So for me, opener. And I am vegan for many years, but I believe that this is an information that is worth sharing with many, because I believe that there is no awareness about this situation. What are the reasons of the land degradation, of sustainable lifestyle that we have today? And this is something what we all do, and this is something what we all can change, because it is up to me, what I put on my plate. And of course, this is just to demonstrate what is the impact of plant-based diet versus dairy and meat-based diet. If, let's assume, everyone would become vegan, we would be able to reduce the whole land used for crops and pasture by 75%. And still, we would have enough calories, proteins, and all other minerals to feed the earth. So I believe this is something what we all can think of, and we really can check how much we love our earth, our land, and also our future. And this is really not a difficult thing to change. And then there are so many other benefits. It's not only about...
Agneta, we can only see the slide 1.
Okay, no problem. I will then continue like that. It's fine.
Okay.
So plant-based diet has not only a big influence on the land restoration, but also there are so many other benefits. When we speak about the suffering, the pain that is caused by processing and also dairy production, in plant-based diet, this is completely out of the question. So it's not only from environmental point of view, but it's very much also from our mental point of view, from our values point of view, that really plant-based diet is something to consider. And I mean no meat, no fish, no dairy diet. So then the next thing which I would like to, that yes, sometimes we believe that this plant-based diet does not provide enough minerals, enough calories, enough proteins. However, very many, the strongest animals in the whole world, basically they live on plants. So elephants, gorillas, or maybe horse, which is very strong and very agile. So this reason is not really on my conscience more, and what I want to do to help our environment. Then the next thing is about cooking. We can also see how we can sustainably cook the food that we eat. And I would like to share that in Brahma Kumaris in India, we have been researching and demonstrating that it is possible to cook for big gatherings food using the solar energy to generate steam, which is then used for cooking. And we have been doing it for the last 25 years. So in India, in our headquarters, there is the first institutional solar cooker that was created and introduced in 1995, and it is operating still today. Then in 1999, we have inaugurated at that time the biggest cook food for 15,000 people, which means twice a day, in total 30,000 meals we can cook using solar energy. So again, we not only look at what we eat, but also how we cook. And it is today possible to use also sustainable ways to cook our food. So indeed, our total carbon footprint would be reduced. So to mention is that, okay, we can think what to eat, we think which ways we can cook, what fuel we can use for cooking. But there is one more very important thing which we need to consider when we speak about sustainable eating. And what I mean here is that it's not only the kind of food what we eat, but it's also important to see in which state of mind we prepare the food. What is our state of mind? And there is a lot of researches done on that, and even my colleagues later will speak about it. But it is commonly accepted today that thoughts are having big influence on the matter. Why? Because the awareness is the smallest, the tiniest unit of energy, influence all other types of energy. So if we prepare food in state of peaceful mind, in relaxation, then one thing is that our body will be relaxed, and whatever we eat, it will be absorbed, and also it will be distributed. All nutrients will be distributed to every cell. But also, if we eat in the state of a peaceful mind, then this energy of peace or love, like mothers and grandmothers, prepare food with love, this energy will go into the food that we eat, and this will also create a harmony inside our inner balance. And this is again something very easy, what everyone can do. Just when we cook and when we eat, before we start doing it, we make a pause. We stop for a few seconds, for a minute, and just think, I am peace. You just think it, experience it, and this vibration automatically goes to the food that you prepare, or maybe that you eat. Or when we drink water, before we drink, we can just create this conscious thought. And that will change the molecules, and also then the impact on the body and the mind will be positive because it's a pure. So I think there is not so much time left now, but I would like just to draw our attention to one more thing, because we speak about improving the world, about changing the world. So let us imagine that the world is like a tree. So, okay, we water the tree, we protect the tree in so many ways that we have heard today. We mulch it, we prune it, but actually the quality of the very much depends on the seed. So the same is with our life. Actually, if we want to change the world, we should not start the change with the world, but we should go to the seed. And the seed is the awareness that I have. As my awareness, so my thoughts, so my attitude, so my words, so my vision, so my actions, so are my relationships. So today I just would like to inspire everyone, or maybe just invite everyone to think about this process, not from outside in, but from inside out. And again, it's not complicated, but it's very effective and very powerful. So it's just a matter of spending some time in silence and consciously creating positive thoughts. Because what is awareness? Awareness is, you can create this awareness in a very constructive way. I am a peaceful being. And then automatically these vibrations of peace will spread out and will influence those who are around me, will influence the atmosphere, and will also influence the whole matter. So I think I will finish now because my time is coming to the end. And I just would like to finish with a moment of silence. You know, just few selves, go inside and create, consciously create this one thought. I am a peaceful being, and I radiate peace all around, to the food that I eat, to the water that I drink, to the atmosphere in the room where I am. And then these vibrations will spread nature to return to its balance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aneta. It's very beautiful. I think we never really think of food as giving it that energy that will actually help us to be peaceful. We just think of food as giving us the energy to do work rather than to really have a state of being that is peaceful, restful, and balanced. So thank you for sharing. And now we move on to our fourth panelist. So Vikram is all the way in Mauritius. Are you in Mauritius or in Malawi still?
Malawi.
Malawi. But Vikram is from Mauritius.
Don't be confused by the two names. Okay.
Yeah. So his real name is Dewendra Dupna, and I knew him as Vikram, and we all say Vikram. But he's a senior medical laboratory technologist at the Ministry of Health in Mauritius. He's very well known for his contribution towards environment and is a field epidemiologist with the Indian Ocean Commission, the Mauritius cohort. He's also the president of the youth wing of the Brahma Kumaris, the Global Peace House, Mauritius, as well as the volunteer and project coordinator. Vikram is fascinated by the link that our mind has over the environment, and this led him to search more on environmental issues. Welcome to you, Vikram. You have the mic for the next 15 minutes.
To Grace. So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and loving greetings from Malawi and also from Mauritius. Today I will be presenting on the topic of the person, where do we stand in sustainable food production and resilient agricultural practices. So I will try to share what's going on in Mauritius and what's the way forward, what are the challenges, and what is actually being done in terms of like resilient agricultural practices. For those of you who don't know Mauritius, it's in the Indian Ocean. It's a small island, and we have beautiful beaches, we have beautiful skies, so most welcome. And of like what happens in the field of agriculture, we have around 6,000 planters who are registered in Mauritius, but we do have more planters, people who just practice like backyard farming, gardening just for their own consumption. And it's good to know that the main plantation in Mauritius was sugarcane, but like some few years ago, we couldn't export our sugar to the European Union because we couldn't send our sugar there because they were importing from their own countries. But of course, we have also a variety of fruits and vegetables that are grown in Mauritius. For example, we have sugar, we have tea, banana, pineapple, lychees, processed foods. These are for export. And we also have the processed food like banana chips that we export. So this is like we have the sugarcane plantation everywhere around, still going on. But plantation that you can see, and the greeneries. Now, concerning organic farming, like we're talking about sustainable agricultural practice, which is one way of dealing with it. We are, well, the figures are not so encouraging, but we have only 25 organizations or planters, group of planters that have been registered, that are known to practice organic farming. And there is an organic unit into organic practices, and it's only one cooperative that you know, that as a platform that groups all these organizations. But still, there's an encouraging point that the number of planters going to organic farming is increasing, because we know the value of organic farming now. So government do encourage people to go to organic farming. For example, we have grants. So in terms of USD, for example, if you want to start organic enterprise, you have one of 2,000 USD. We also have a sheltered farming grant because of climatic conditions. And so one of the mitigation strategies was to offer grant to farmers to go to sheltered farming. So in a way, like they can be more sustainable. And so around 3,000 USD is, of course, the grant is limited to the 100 first. And of course, we also have encouraging the youth with degree holder. They have around 1,300 USD to engage in agriculture. So these challenges in terms of, for example, we do have an organic certification from the ministry, but it's not so effective. And like you can read, consumers don't care. They care only about, you know, which product is more cheap and which product can I afford. So it's not giving that real value in the product. We do have a pesticide bill that, but we lack the regulatory bodies that will need to monitor whether effectively, like, you know, we have like control of pesticides. And farming bill, which is in the way, which is still in draft form. And of course, with climate change and Mauritius being a small island state, farmers are discouraged in the sense that they plant and then we have lots of rain, all the seeds are lost, and then they have to plant again. So it's like a bit discouraging for planters to like face these climate change effects. And of course, we also have the bees colonies that are affected by the pesticides. And with plant and animal diseases, we are not, for example, now we know the monkeypox is gaining territory, but there are many plant and animal diseases that are emerging because of the increased pesticide use that are affecting the bees colony. And you know that if all bees die, the world will end like in 10 or 20 years. So what are the adaptation and mitigation strategies that we can say Mauritius is going through? What happened is that local organizations are proceeding to what we call the PGS. It's a and this is funded by Japan that may help them to gain further like value in terms of their products, because they're also going towards export, and it's a more like international recognized certification. And of course, we encourage sheltered farming to mitigate climate change. For example, recently, I mean, like some 25 years ago, we have many cyclones that visit Mauritius, and these cyclones in a way like limit the population of bats. The population of bats is increasing, and we have these bats are predators that are like affecting fruit crops, and this is a real concern. So we, for example, we have grants from the government for people to buy nests to protect the orchards, the fruit trees, etc. These are some mitigation strategies. But in terms of adaptation, we can say that it is costly because, for example, if we have flash floods coming now, we have suddenly lots of water to contain. So, and of course, we talk about climate justice, where we try to find the funds, because we are not the country who have contributed to a lot of this pollution, climate change, but we are the countries that are getting affected more. And of course, these are being we are going towards this, for example, construction of large canals, barriers to evacuate the water. And there's a need to review the way we plant, because, you know, older generation plantation farming is like generation to generation, but learn the new way, because you can't go the old way. So this is like, and you have to adapt. And when we talk about adaptation, we'll talk also about innovation. And this is where I would like to mention that there's an organization in Mauritius called So what is the way forward? The way forward is to have dialogue, you know, like, I think it's a bit everywhere. You know, we have people who are doing organic farming, but they have lots, and we have consumers, we have people who want to buy, but they don't know where to buy. So like there's a gap somewhere there, and we need to have more dialogue, consensus, and like a proper like platform where we can really bring these kinds of products to people who really need it and know the value, where they can really buy with like not bargain. So population should be sensitized to the value of organic products for environment and health, and not just, you know, value sake, this is costly, this is cheap. And also we need to have more cooperation between planters, farmers. And when we talk about trainings, there should be new techniques. We can't just go, for example, planting like monocrop. We need to have like permaculture and all these new techniques that will help in a way to have sustainable way of going forward. And in saying so, we need to practice circular economy. For example, we take banana plantation. Before we had just produced a banana, we sell it. But what do we do with the peels? What do we do with the trunk? So we can use the peels for compost and fertilizers. We need some help from the state to really put structures so that we are able to really go to practicing that circular economy that so much what it is being talked about is the talk of the day, but we need to have structures, and we need to have the funds that we can put these structures. And for example, when we talk about innovation, I would like to introduce, there's an organization in Mauritius called the Falcon Citizen, who in collaboration with the Brahma Kumaris have come forward with the following. For example, so when tourists come in our country, we make them visit these places, and tourists are really fascinated by the way we do like these practices of organic. And they come, they visit, they produce, they consume the products, they eat there, and they have a nice time. So it's a way of sensitizing the people, the tourists, and it's a way of earning, like of bringing, of contributing to the economy. And they also practice organic food production, train the youth, and the youth are certified. Also, they have a training section where they also teach people yogic farming. And we have at the Global Peace House like a experimental place where people can come and see how we are doing this yogic farming, which I'm sure will be covered in a way. And also we practice what we call solar cooking, which in a way, like we are addressing the food and energy security issue, which is very important to small island state. So I'll just end with some few slides where we can just, because of Peace Garden, where we can see like the yogis meditating, and all around you can see the lettuces and the plants flourishing. And also we have done also some training, like showing people how you can prepare your own fertilizers, your own pesticides, using materials from your own like garden. So in a way, it's like a sort of zero budget natural farming. And of course, I was mentioning the solar cooking. Sister Anita mentioned the solar cooking but in terms of local, what you can do locally, you can practice this at your home. This is experimentation and demonstration to students, but you can also practice it at your home. You can build your own solar box cooker, and you can cook your food for free. You cook your food, which you get from your farm, and you know, everything is here, everything is free, and it's delicious. And with this, I thank you, and I'll give back the floor to you, Sister Grace. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Vikram. That was so inspiring. And you know, just letting people, just the last two slides, but in particular where people feel that they can actually do something individually to make a difference. Sometimes we want to look more to a sort of governmental drive, but we can do something individually to make a difference. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so now we will move on to our fifth panelist. Our fifth panelist is Sonia. Sonia is all the way in Denmark right now, but just a few days ago she was in Ghana. She is the Brahma Kumari's designated contact point to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC. She's also the international coordinator of the Brahma Kumari's Environment Initiative. Sonia is from Sweden but lives in Denmark, where she coordinates the activities of the Brahma Kumaris there. So welcome to you, Sonia, and you have the mic. The mic is yours for the next 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, and good evening to everybody. It's 5:30 here in Copenhagen, and it's cold and rainy, and I had a bit of a shock when I came back from last week, coming to this very cold spring in Copenhagen. And I've been listening to all the speakers with a lot of interest and fascination of your expertise in the various areas. I thought I would share my experience and my own story. As I like this word resilience in the title. And as the previous panelists have been describing the state of agriculture state and degrading state. And sensitive people create sensitive times. But it's also the opposite, that because of the sensitive time we are living in, we also become sensitive. So it's an inside-out approach, but for sure it's also an outside-in approach. And if we look at the same, say that resilient farmers contribute to resilient land and resilient communities and resilient societies. And you see, my own dad was a farmer in Sweden. So I've grown up on a farm halfway up in Sweden. And in Sweden, we have very distinct seasons with cold winters, very cold, lots of snow. And we also have very hot summers. And the upbringing I had on the farm, which was a very safe upbringing. I'm 60 this year, so it's a long time ago, and the world has changed massively since then. For example, when I grew up, we didn't have the word stress. I can't remember hearing it a single time. The first time I heard the word stress would have been when I was a young adult and moved into the city. At the maximum, what my dad would say, the people, it was his way of describing I have a lot to do, because he also helped other people on the farms. But in a modern language, I would call my dad a resilient farmer. And why? What qualities do resilient farmers have? And it would be so interesting to hear what your experience and what your opinion is on this. So most welcome to speak, but have a look afterwards. That what qualities do a resilient farmer have? What personal qualities? And what I saw in my dad, and which first comes to mind, was a very stable and disciplined life. And I call it discipline, but my dad would never use that word. For him, it was completely natural, without fail, by himself, without alarm clock. And he has to go to the cow shed and milk the cows early in the morning. And we didn't have holidays when I was young. I remember we made a trip to our capital. I would have been 7 maybe. And we went up and down, I think, the same day. And this word holiday didn't exist. But we had a very free life on the farm anyhow. And meal times were totally regular. Breakfast same time, lunch same time, everything the same time. And it was a very natural life. And we know nowadays that that kind of very regular sleeping habits, regular eating times is very good for health. And it creates a good immune system. And you become resilient in your health and in your, and I can see that I can learn from that in my spiritual life. Even though I sometimes struggle with the word discipline, I can change it and call it is a natural life. And we think we're longing for freedom when we live a disciplined life, but freedom is in my mind. It's not in the lack of discipline. And if we look at nature, it's actually very disciplined. When it's now climate change has brought the season out of its own timings and discipline, and everything is upside down. But in a natural ecosystem, in its natural biodiversity, everything would be very regular and very disciplined. And that creates resilience. And my dad also had another very good quality I appreciate, which was that for him, rest was a rest. And when it was time to relax and to do hobbies, he would do that without having bad conscience for not doing the endless work on the farm. And I can learn from that to let my body, let my mind, let my heart, all of it be on the task I'm doing, and not having bad conscience for everything I don't do. Because this kind of living creates resilience. And if you if you harvest, or if you work with a crop, if you work with a forest, you see, my mind, my heart, and my body is there. And that would have a very positive influence on the mind and on the land, I mean. And a third quality, which I will not go into depth with, was that I found that all the farmers on the countryside have a good humor, and that creates a very good immune system and body resilience on its own. And continuing on this topic of resilience, I came across a researcher from the US in one of the conferences. And this researcher, she had read 5,000 articles on resilience, because she was very curious, where does the personal resilience come from? Upbringing like I had on the farm, or is it in the soul? Is it spiritual practice? Is it from your parents? Is it from your education? Is it from geographics? What creates inner resilience? And this researcher, she boiled it down to 3 main qualities. And these 3 qualities, the first one was to face the truth. I have to look real. And today we have serious desertification, serious disturbance in biodiversity and air pollution and climate change. We have a triple crisis, and we have to face it. We have to look it into the eyes, because only then will I take action, and I will think in new patterns. And to face the truth in that sense takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of resilience and strength, not to hide. And the second quality this researcher came up with was to have a spiritual or religious framework in your life. Because as we see the world progressing and the pollution just increasing, and all the statistics and facts are going in the wrong way when it comes to climate change, then I need to have a fallback option where I can rest my mind, to find the spirit to continue. And that fallback, that is my spiritual or religious framework. And I could see on my dad that he wasn't a religious or spiritual person in that sense, but for him the forest was his life. And in the forest, he sometimes used to talk to God. And he often said, I talk more to God in the forest than I do in the church. So he never went. He had everything he needed there. And the third quality for resilience would be innovation. So when I don't have any other option to move forward, what do? Either I become powerless or I find a new way. And this mindset of thinking outside the box, creativity, innovation, it's being unlimited, that some people find from their spiritual practice. And here the yogic farming in India, which Brahmakumaris have practiced now for I think 10, 15 years, is a fantastic example, because there was a farmer who had a meditation center next to a land that was completely dead due to over pesticides into this land, so it's completely dead. And he started land, and slowly he saw that some plants were beginning to grow. So he continued, and this became the basis for an experiment which we call Yogic Agriculture, where we not only use organic farming, but we empower the seeds and the land with good wishes and with meditation and peaceful thoughts. So we would put the sack of seeds in the meditation room for a week before. Those seeds, they have a much higher percentage in sprouting and seeding than many others who don't get this extra boost of good wishes. And then every week, the people from the meditation center would go and sit on the land and spread good wishes, which increase the crop yield and increase the percentage of vitamins and minerals, etc., in the crops. And we would love to do more research on this yogic farming, but and we are working on it in India and hope to provide more scientific results. What we have now is not double-checked according to normal research standards, but it's on the way. And I think next speaker might touch on this topic. So I think my time is up, and I say thank you very much. And if you have my farm in Sweden, my dad is not around anymore, but my mom lives there, and there are many active farmers in the village still. And I would recommend maybe you come summertime, because the winter would be a bit too cold for you, I reckon. So Om Shanti, and we continue to increase our inner resilience when we work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for bringing it home, close to the heart with your dad. It's almost like there, because I too was brought up on a farm. So
yes,
it really brings back some childhood memories. Thank you so much for sharing that. And now we move on to our final speaker, last but not, of course, not the least. And so our final speaker is Professor John Indrito. John is a professor of civil and environmental engineering in the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. He specializes in water resources management and has been researching on improvement of crop yield and nutrition content. John has been meditating since 1992 and is currently coordinating a meditation center in Soweto, Johannesburg. It is his meditation practice that he is using as a tool for improving crop yield and nutritional yield. John holds a BSc Honours, an MS in Civil Engineering, and a PhD from Adelaide in Australia. Welcome, John. You are the last but no means the least. So, John, you have the mic for the next 15 minutes.
Okay, so I'll be sharing the screen. Thank you very much. So you're talking about sustainable food production and we're also asking how far are we regarding the sustainable development goals of 2030 in relation to food production. So I'll be touching on that. And then suggesting or coming up with talking about methods that have been proposed for improving sustainability, resilience, and trying to meet those targets. And how you're finally regarding how this could be enhanced by using consciousness. I think quite a number of us have talked about that. But being in an academic space, I've done some experiments to find out whether that is the case or not. So I'll be sharing that along the way. So yeah, so there are so many effects of modern agriculture on land, and I think agriculture and farming is what has impacted a lot on land resource, or land use is currently not sustainable because of the way we have been farming, maybe as a result of many reasons, including the rise in population, farming methods that are not aligned to nature, and the use of chemical fertilizers and herbicides and all of that. So that has been spoken about. But we know that agricultural food production is one of the things that is a real problem to. It's what the UN Secretary General has indicated, that why we are utilizing 1.7 planets instead of maybe less than a single planet, as Aneta said, Sister Aneta said, is because of how we are producing our food, how we are processing that, and how we are even maybe doing the economics of it in some developed countries and all of that. So anyway, we need more sustainable and resilient farming and food systems. And one of the methods that has been proposed is what we are calling agroecology. And I think what Naomi was mentioning, and I think even Dr. Frank and actually all the speakers constitutes agroecology in a sense. And that is where we try to look at we can integrate everything that would bring about more sustainable and more resilient farming into practice. And of course, that would vary depending on the condition you are in, depending on where we are. But there are some 10 elements that have been proposed for agroecology. And one of them is diversity, permaculture. Was it permaculture? I think is one of that Naomi was mentioning. And the other thing is we need to cooperate in sharing knowledge with all the stakeholders, and we need to utilize all the synergies, which means, for instance, organic matter. We know organic matter improves the structure of the soil. That helps the soil not to be eroded as fast, and that also improves carbon storage, and therefore it reduces the impact of climate change. So utilizing those synergies in farming is one of the aspects of agroecology, and being more efficient in your production, which means you are obtaining more inputs with less resources. Part of that would include recycling your biomass and your nutrients and your water. And that would, and another aspect is resilience, what Sonia has been speaking about. And when you think about resilience, that includes communities as well and ecosystems as well. Because many of these are connected, is that we need to look at human and social values. So how are we doing our farming? Is there equity? Are we including everyone, including maybe women and the youth? And those aspects need to be looked at as well to promote sustainability, and also respecting how people have been working with their food traditionally, because these have been developed out of wisdom that has evolved over time. And of course, responsible governance, which is a big challenge. So it needs to be transparent, accountable, inclusive. And Brother Vikram talked about the circular economy. So we can think about it as circular and solidarity economy, where you are connecting the producers with the consumers. And you're not having the food produced at one place going too far, but as much as possible, it is within the consumers who can be promotes the local communities, promotes the economy, promotes how they work with each other, makes them more resilient. So one can think about agroecology in this manner. So how do all those aspects, 10 aspects, connect to each other? So this is one way of thinking about it. And of course, there could be other sorts of, relationships between the various aspects or elements of agroecology. This is what is generally more known regarding how we can sustain our food production much better, or how we can improve the sustainability of food production much better. But the ones that are a bit less known, and I think some of our previous speakers have spoken about them, are the more subtle aspects. And we have this particular book that was talking about subtle agroecologies, which means we are dealing with the things that are subtle, the aspects of life that are non-material, and we know about this. We're talking about spirit, we're talking about consciousness, but we could also be talking about things that we know a bit better, like, for instance, in this particular slide, you could think about using electricity as light, you can think about using sound waves, because these are forms of vibrational energy. And in reality, or currently, a lot of farming or some farming practices are also using some of these technologies. For instance, it is known that sound technologies can be used to promote farming. So this is somewhere in China. So you can see all this on a farm. Then you have another system here. You can see some speakers on another farm. So one can use sound as a means to improve yield. One can use sound as a means to alter the nutrition content of the produce, and probably also help the plants and the crops resist pests and diseases a bit better. So lots of work, or some work has been done in this area, but of course it's not what I've been working on. Based on my background as a meditator, is to look at technologies that are based on consciousness. So I'm calling them technologies, but one can think about methods like energy-based methods like Reiki or mindfulness, other methods of meditation. But when one thinks about them as technologies, it means it's available to you. You can use it. You simply need to learn it and apply it. And something we know is that consciousness, or that food and farming is a sacred practice, has been with us for a long, long time. And it is only in the last few decades that we actually lost it. And that, of course, means that we were farming with care. We were giving love to the food, to the plants, to the land. And that, of course, was making a big difference. But of course, currently, it may be difficult for people to actually understand, or even, and they will think this is not scientific, this can't happen. So I carried out some experiments to find out whether that is the case. And that was also the time I was supervising a PhD student. And for that particular work, we're trying to find out whether if you use contour ridges, we're calling them dead level contours, whether you can improve the yield of maize. So we are setting this up somewhere in Zimbabwe. Farming that Sonia and Brother Vikram mentioned was happening or starting to happen in our institution. So I thought I can set up some experiments to find out, is yogic farming actually effective? Where you meditate and also apply organic farming. So I set up some experiments on the rooftop of our civil engineering building. This is what I'm illustrating here. So I had 100 buckets and 10, and I was meditating on neighboring on one bucket that's tipping the next one. This is what it looked like when the carrots were close to harvesting. And just to illustrate what I was actually doing, so I was meditating in the morning. After my early morning meditation at 4:45, I used another 30 minutes based in Soweto and meditate by sending positive thoughts, pure energy, this current of light to the carrots on the rooftop of the civil engineering building, which is 15 kilometers away. And I did that until we harvested. And that's how it was happening, which means rows, specific rows were meditated on, and the neighboring rows were not meditated on, so they are the controls. Otherwise, everything else was similar. So what results did we obtain? So the average yield of the meditated carrots was 11% higher. It was statistically significant. And also the shoots and the leaves were also much higher, much bigger, much larger by about 10% or 9.5%. And also large improvements in the nutrition content. And that is what this is showing, the percent increase in nutrition content for various constituents. Some of them are around 0, but you can see all these large improvements in nutrition content. This was also evident by simply looking at the carrots. Actually forgot to put a photo of the carrots, comparing the ones meditated on and the ones that were not, but it was obvious that the ones meditated on were much brighter, had much more vigor than the controls. So I've also carried out other experiments, but there's no time to talk about that, have been obtained from the yogic farming experiments in India, where currently more than 2,000 farmers are practicing, is what I want to show here. So if one applies organic farming, and you apply organic farming with meditation, the percentage increase as a result of meditating is what is being shown here for various aspects of the yield, and this for a wheat crop over one season. In this particular case, for this particular farmer, it made a big impact. And the other thing is that comparing organic farming, yogic farming with chemical farming, the yields were quite comparable, although the basic assumption of what is basically known is that organic farming is not as high yielding as chemical farming. But when one adds the meditation, it makes a much bigger difference. And this is what this particular graph here is illustrating. This is my last slide. So if you think about these technologies of consciousness, which means I am this being of consciousness, you know, I'm the living being, the being of consciousness, and I have this energy, which is the same energy that gives life to my body. So what's the difference between a dead body and a human being? There is that energy, which is the living energy. But what you're saying is that you can apply it for farming. And if there are 4 aspects of agroecology that can actually be impacted directly by these technologies. So when one meditates, one is more resilient. So one is better at having human and social values. When one meditates, resilience increases. So my ability to handle difficulties, challenging situations is much better, to make better decisions when challenges are coming. And you know these are coming because of all the various challenges. And also when one comes to that inner state and connects to one's inner values and recognizes all the values in others, then one is likely to be more responsible in what one does. And there's actually quite a lot of research also supporting that. But also one is able to cooperate better. Therefore, when you talk about farmers and the consumers connecting, working together, that also becomes much easier. So I think I will end my presentation. So thank you very much. Back to Sister Grace.
Thank you very much, John, and all the speakers. We have some questions that we're going to look at. Not a lot, but if anybody have some last minute question that you want to post up, remember, send it directly to me. The first question was for either Naomi or Dr. Frank. And the question is like, how to use neem, because this person has boiled the leaves and spray on, put the leaves at the roots, asking the question whether you boil the leaves and spray or put the leaves at the roots of the plants, and can Tulsi basil be used in the same way? What do you use for yellow tomato leaves? It starts to dry, but the fruit is good. So the question is, how do you use neem?
Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yes, for the neem, it depends on the kind of pest that you want to manage. Yes, if it is a pathogen, like in the soil, you can apply the neem leaf to the soil, issue with basal rods of shallot and then onions. So we conducted an experiment where we applied the neem leaves to the soil. When you are preparing the soil, you add the neem leaves, the dry leaves to the soil, and then it helps in managing the soil-borne pathogen. But if you want to spray against these pests that eat the leaves, then it's advisable that you collect, if you want to use, yes, you can, or the leaf extract. The leaf extract, what you need to do is that you collect the extract, the leaves, and then you air dry them. You get a cool, dry place, you spread them. You have to make sure that it is not under the direct sunlight, because the active ingredient, there's a azadirachtin in the leaves. When you expose it to sunlight, it will escape. So it is always advisable that you dry it. So when it dries, then you can grind it into powder. So approximately when you use 10 liters or a bucket of water, you put 1 handful in the water, and then you mix, and you can strain or add I always advise that you add a little bit of liquid soap to it and then you spray. So that is basically how you can use the neem leaf. For the basil, mostly we advise that you grow it in your garden, the pest. So you grow it in between the plants, or let's say you can plant a row in it. You can also collect the leaves and then prepare it the same way you prepare the neem extract. You air dry, and then you grind, and then you can mix with water and then spray. So basically, if you want to use the neem, this is how you have to go about it. Thank you.
The next question is also for Dr. Frank, and it comes like, how do you see all these methods that have been introduced by various speakers, starting from Naomi, also from Vikram, and from Indrito? How do you see that being used in Ghana on a wide scale among the farmers?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let me start with the Yogi Farming. I think it's an interesting method that can be practiced, because one thing that I've observed, even my dad is he said I'm a gardener. One thing that I observed was that when I was growing up, whenever my dad wakes up, even if he's not doing anything, he will just go and stand in the garden quietly and then be observing the crop. He will just walk around the garden and several times just be walking and then be observing. And that is what he used to do, always, and then in the morning, and then just be observing. Myself, when I also started gardening, sometimes, even yesterday, I just went to stand in the garden, just be watching, and then be observing. So it's an interesting method that I think, and we have not been conscious of it, but I think it's something that everyone can practice and then see the true effect of it. And then the other method, I think the agroecology practice. But now we have always been promoting this. We have a lot of spaces where people need to be planting these crops, and then plant any plant that you can get around to improve the environment. When I started my campaign as a home gardener, and that is what I was giving out free fruit trees, giving out to people, plant it around your community, plant it. Don't think about you benefiting, but it is good community. So I gave out free seeds, I give out free seeds and then free seedlings. And that has helped a lot, because you go to a community and then you realize that the degradation is so much, but if you care about the environment, you grow something. So I think all the method, I'm so happy listening and then also learning from the other speakers. It is something that needs to be applied, but it has to be intensified. That is why personally I started my campaign as a home gardener, and I'm in to support. So helping, I think, is going to go a long way, but it also comes with how we can intensify the campaign. That is what we need to do now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. And the next question is for Aneta. Someone is asking, what are any alternative to milk? Would coconut milk be okay?
Coconut milk is very much okay. And there are so many alternatives to cow milk. And many of them actually we can do at home. Like, for example, almond milk or cashew nut milk. But we can also make soybean milk. So many things we can do at home. But also now there are many, many different alternatives for cow milk available in the shop. So there is peanut, you can make coconut milk, you can buy basically rice milk. So depending on your taste and also on economics, you can choose, you can buy, or you can do yourself at home. And it's not easy. Our sister Grace is very much experienced in that. For sure she can show, and she can also share the recipes. So I would really recommend for everyone to try, because of course the taste will be different than cow milk, and there are so many benefits. So please just experiment, try, and check for yourself. Thank you.
Regarding the milk, Sister Grace, you mentioned that how you make yogurt from fresh cream of the coconut. You know, when the fresh coconut comes after we take out the water, there's a lot of cream, and what we call in Ghana is called the food of the coconut. And they scrape it out and they just eat it. Put that in the blender, add a probiotic capsule to it, and you have yogurt, and you can add, and it's amazing. You get coconut yogurt from that. So it's on YouTube also. A lot of these are on YouTube. Another thing I wanted to say about dairy milk. Dairy milk in our body produces phlegm. Phlegm is the mucus when we are sneezing, when we are coughing, the phlegm that comes out. Dairy milk contributes to the production of that phlegm in our body, whereas coconut milk and these alternative milks don't. So these are the two things I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. Right. So we're just going to wind up now, and I want to just give a summary of all that we heard. We had Naomi, unfortunately she had to leave. Naomi, who shared about a practical example within 1 year, how you can actually restore barren land by just treating it with natural things, banana peels, banana mulch, rotten bananas, and bringing back to life the soil. We can do so much in a little space to create some food production for ourselves. And then we had Dr. Frank, who showed us all the various pests that can actually be a hindrance to food production. But there are also a lot of these biopesticides that can be used but not being used in its fullness. So like I think he said 1% of the pesticides used are biopesticides. And biopesticides seem to be quite a cheaper option as well. Then we have sisters, when we have Anieta. Anieta took us into the value of food and how we can actually use food not just as something to nourish the body, but to use the food to build a consciousness, an understanding of myself, and a more relaxing way of living. And then we had Vikram, and Vikram gave us the state of agriculture in Mauritius and what is being done with the Brahma Kumari Center in Mauritius, this yogic farming, where they're encouraging people to come and see how it works, and the solar cooker as well. Now I'm going to put that in the chat in a minute so that people, you can actually take note of the URL, that you can find a video that Vikram has done showing exactly how to build a solar cooker. And we had Sonia, who gave us the feeling of the farmers, not just that the land and the produce, but those who are working on the land and making that the yield, the produce, they actually need to be very resilient, because there are off days and there are on days, and there are days when we saw from Dr. Frank's presentation where climate change can actually make a big difference to the crop yield. So resilience is very important, and she gave some really nice criteria in which a resilient farmer can be identified. And I do like the one of having a good sense of humor, because that goes a long way in everything, not just farm life. And finally, we had Dr. Indrito, who gave us a very systematic look at how we can use consciousness. And he calls it a technology, but really is a technique, and where I am consciously giving energy to whatever it is. And he talked about even sound energy, vibrations from sound can even help to alleviate pests from the plants. Not only do they thrive, but also the pests, maybe they can't stand the noise, maybe they can't stand the sound. And so we had a holistic view, very much in a nutshell, but wonderful anyway. So my gratitude to all the speakers. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the panel and to sharing so beautifully. And thank you for those who take the time to join us on this wonderful discussion of sustainable food production and resilient farming practices. My heartfelt thanks. I just want to end with 1 minute of silence, and I know that one sentence or one statement have been given to you, and I want to use the statement and add to the statement. I am peaceful, but I want to also say that I am powerful and I can make a change. So hold those statements in your mind for 1 minute and feel them within yourself. Okay, thank you. Vikram, could you actually share it to everyone, the link that you sent, the YouTube link? It would be best.
And I also wish everyone a happy Environment Day, which is next weekend, the 5th of June. And it's World Environment Day is 50 years old birthday this year. So happy World Environment Day.
Thank you, Sonia.